The movie begins in a vast, strange desert, where a man named Martin, part of National Geographic's team for filming nature and rare phenomena, arrives with his vehicle. He's there to capture a solar and lunar eclipse. Martin sits down to observe the strange trees, animals, and insects, many of which are likely extinct in most forests. As time passes, the moment of the eclipse arrives, and Martin starts taking the required photos. After spending the entire day in the sun, he gets exhausted and decides to sleep and continue his journey the next day. The next morning, Martin wakes up ready to leave, but he's surprised to find a young boy who seems to have gotten lost. Martin tries to help the boy find his way back, but the child insists on taking a different path from the one Martin came from. Concerned for the boy's safety, Martin decides to follow him along the unfamiliar route. On their way, unexpected events unfold. At some point, the boy asks Martin for water. Martin hands it to him, but warns him not to finish it all as it's the only water he has left. The boy suddenly gets angry, throws the water on the ground, and runs off. While walking away, the boy gives Martin a wicked, sinister smile before disappearing into the desert. Martin, now confused and lost, has no idea where the boy went, and finds himself stuck in a place with no clear path. Martin continues walking through the desert until night falls. He takes shelter between two rocks. In the dark, he hears a strange noise approaching from afar. Curious, he gets up to investigate. Eventually, he hears a girl's voice singing between two mountain paths. Following the sound, Martin discovers a wooden cabin with lights and a girl singing and circling around it. He approaches, hoping someone inside might help him get back to his vehicle. Martin knocks on the cabin door, but the girl doesn't respond. Desperate for help, he asks if she has a phone or charger to help him call for assistance, but she remains silent. Instead, she places food in front of him and introduces herself as Maria. Hungry and thirsty, Martin eats everything she offers and drinks the water. He asks her once again for directions back to where he came from, but she stays quiet. She simply shows him a room where he can sleep. Tired from wandering in the desert, he follows her suggestion and falls asleep. Before drifting off, he notices a strange mark on her back but is too exhausted to think much of it. The next morning, Martin wakes up early, gathers his things, and leaves some money as a thank you for the food and shelter. As he prepares to leave, he notices a strange painting on the wall of a woman's face and the body of a mysterious creature, but he doesn't pay it much attention. He heads towards the stairs he came down the day before but is shocked to find that only half the stairs remain. Confused and panicked, Martin tries to retrace his steps but finds that the cabin is now completely surrounded by mountains with no way out except through the missing stairs. Frustrated, Martin takes out his camera and begins documenting everything, especially the strange painting on the wall. Meanwhile, Maria comes out of the cabin, adjusting a metal bar in front of the house. Martin approaches her and asks again about the stairs, but she claims to have no idea what happened to them, suggesting someone might have taken them. He asks if anyone else lives in the area, but she remains silent. Martin continues to press, asking if there's another way out. Maria finally tells him that the only way out is through the missing stairs. He tries with all his might to climb the mountains, but he doesn't know how to do anything. Every time he tries to climb, he slips and falls. He ends up sitting all night thinking about what to do. Then, he enters Maria's cabin and starts searching for something he could use to climb the mountains, but all he finds is an old hammer. He takes it and actually tries to use it to climb. After he reaches halfway up the mountain, he hears the voices of children and sees their shadows, but suddenly, he falls, and the hammer falls with him, getting stuck in his leg. Martin screams at the top of his lungs until Maria comes and helps him pull the hammer out of his leg. She then bandages his wound and wraps up his leg. Martin stays in bed for over 4 days, and during that time, he sees strange visions of children. Eventually, he regains consciousness, but he can't stand on his leg properly. He tries to stand and leaves the cabin, calling out to anyone to help him get out, but no one answers. Martin tells Maria that he needs to get out of there. She assures him she'll take care of him, but Martin yells at her, saying he wants to go back to his life and his job and doesn't want to stay in this place. He continues shouting at Maria. She leaves him and goes back to her cabin, while his condition worsens, and his leg starts bleeding again. One day, he hears a voice coming from above the mountain. Someone tells him they heard his voice and will help him get out. Martin quickly rushes toward the mountain and starts talking to the people who tell him they're going to throw him a rope, asking him what color he wants. He replies that he doesn't care about the color, but in the end, he chooses red. They throw him a red rope and tell him to tie it securely. Martin follows their instructions. But suddenly, after only 2 people were pulling him up, he finds that the number of people pulling him has strangely increased. It turns into a terrifying scene where they laugh and mock him, hitting the rope against the mountain as if they want to kill him. They look very strange, and Martin starts screaming and calling for Maria. When she comes out, she tells them to stop in a strange language. She manages to free Martin and take him back to her cabin, where she takes care of his leg again. Martin asks Maria who these people are, but she tells him not to talk to them or interact with them, without giving a clear explanation. He tries to leave the cabin again, but she warns him that if he wants to stay safe under her protection, he must follow her orders. He ignores her and remains sitting outside, and soon the same strange figures appear again. Scared, he runs back inside and stays with Maria in the cabin, where she continues to care for him. Over time, Martin begins to lose hope of ever getting out of this place. He adapts to his new life and starts obeying Maria in everything, not caring anymore about leaving or surviving. One day, those strange people throw down a bag filled with whiskey, chocolate, and food. Martin is puzzled and asks Maria how they got these things in the middle of the desert. Maria tells him it's none of his business to ask. Martin grabs the bag of whiskey and drinks from it continuously until he's completely drunk. He keeps asking Maria about why she's there and about those people, but she refuses to answer. One night, as they're having dinner, Martin hears violent noises outside. Being drunk and not feeling anything, he steps outside to face them despite Maria's warnings. He grabs her axe and goes out. He's shocked by how strange the people look, running around him, and one of them knocks him to the ground. Martin manages to get back up and runs into the cabin, crying and asking Maria about those people, but again, she refuses to answer. She tells him he needs to stay away from them and not be around when they're there. Martin starts screaming at her, saying he's not a child for her to control him. But Maria tries to calm him down in every way possible, even holding him in her arms. After that, Martin begins to adjust to everything and takes care of the crops he's been growing. There's only one child who talks to him from the top of the mountain, and Martin constantly tries to convince this child to throw him a rope. But the child is afraid that the strange people will harm him and seems to be under their control. Martin starts getting closer to Maria, little by little. There's a strange-looking picture of a woman hanging on the wall. When Martin asks her about it, she tells him it's her grandmother, the first mother of her family, but she doesn't like talking about her. Maria then reveals to Martin that she's pregnant. Martin gets angry and tells her that it's not right to bring a child into these circumstances, surrounded by mountains, and that the child won't have a chance to even live or learn. But Maria ignores him and walks away. Martin notices that every night she goes outside and stands under the moon in a strange, repetitive way. But he doesn't pay much attention to it since everything around him seems weird. Martin then tries to talk to the boy who stands on top of the mountain, and tells him he's waiting for him to throw down a rope when those strange people aren't around. But as they talk, one of those strange people shows up and takes the boy away. Martin starts having strange and terrifying dreams constantly, and these nightmares make him feel scared and unsettled. One night, he sits with Maria, and they talk. She asks him why he wants to return to his world, and he explains that freedom is the most important thing someone can experience. He also tells her about the things that exist outside the mountains. He shows her his camera and all the pictures he took of solar and lunar eclipses, as well as the places he's been to. Maria is amazed by the pictures since it's the first time she's ever seen something like that. They spend the whole night together. Martin starts opening up to Maria, telling her that he wants to take her with him and start a family. He wants her to see the ocean. The next morning, it's the day Martin and the boy agreed on for him to throw down the rope. Martin packs his things and heads out, but he's shocked to see the strange-looking people standing in front of the mountain, laughing. When Maria sees what's happening, she starts screaming and saying things in a strange language. Even her appearance begins to change, becoming like the strange people. She yells, "Siblings shouldn't do this to each other." It's then revealed that Maria is actually the sister of these strange people, and the boy she's attached to is her son from another man, not Martin. Maria continues screaming at Martin and starts hitting him, blaming him for her son's death. She grabs a big piece of wood and hits him on the head, knocking him out. She then locks him up in a chicken coop. Days, weeks, and months pass, and Martin is still trapped in the coop. His hair and beard grow long, and he spends all his time screaming, not even able to talk anymore. The coop is so small that he can't even stand. Maria continues bringing him food every day, but she never listens to his pleas to release him or kill him. She simply leaves him there. Martin keeps seeing children and strange people in front of him, constantly screaming at them. His nightmares never leave him. One day, he sees a girl standing on top of the mountain. She looks normal, not like the others. She tries to help him escape, but Martin yells at her to stay away and go get the police or find someone to help them. The girl listens to him, but the strange people see her, capture her, and kill her right in front of Martin. He loses all hope of ever escaping. Maria comes to give him a blanket to keep warm, and Martin grabs her hand, telling her he wants to stay with her and live his life with her. He tries to beg her to let him out of the coop, but she still refuses. Then, one day, Maria goes into labor, and it's a very difficult birth. She comes to the coop and begs Martin for help. When Martin gets out, he sees the stairs that led him down to this place. He runs toward the stairs, desperate to escape, but feels sorry for Maria after all she's done to him. He stays by her side and helps her deliver the baby. Martin tells Maria he wants to leave and take her with him to live in freedom outside the mountains. But Maria looks at him and says his role here is finished and that the child will carry on her legacy. Suddenly, one of the strange people appears behind Martin and slashes his throat. Maria looks at Martin with sadness, telling him this is the law of the desert. She returns to the cabin, takes Martin's clothes and belongings, and puts them in a box with the belongings of the previous victims. Maria begins raising the baby and waits for the next victim that the desert will send her way. And that's the end of the story. We hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you did.